Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. I might have to get the assistance of whoever's fine machine this is to get the slides happening. Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on, and also acknowledge that as we know, this land that we're on right now is managed sustainably for tens of thousands of years. And so I often think about that when I'm thinking about my responsibility as a citizen, as a community member, to be looking after this land, taking care of it, and the responsibility that we have as a community collectively to take action to protect forest and bushland, local habitats for wildlife, especially wildlife that can't speak to our politicians and who can't speak out about what's happening to their home. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for your help. So my name's Gemma Presman. I'm the Queensland Campaign Manager with the Wilderness Society. We're a national organisation, environmental not-for-profit, and we operate in almost every single state and territory, but nationwide, and our vision or goal is to protect and support the life that supports us. So not just the furry, cuddly animals that we're talking about tonight, but all life that sustains us. So that's a bit about our mission. But we are here to talk about koalas, and they are indeed in need of urgent action. As many people here tonight know, koalas are in need of urgent action because they're facing a death by 1,000 cuts. Here in southeast Queensland, across the state, and that extends down to New South Wales as well, where they're in big trouble, and mainly from habitat loss. Hands up who has seen the changes in their local environment, even just around this area, around the Redlands area. Yep, pretty much everyone in the room. So no matter how many different communities that I go to, especially here in southeast Queensland, everyone in the room usually puts up their hand when I ask that question. So we are seeing bushland in our backyards going down every single day, and the habitat that supports these animals being stripped. So across the state, so I'm hoping that my slides are working. Sorry. All right, might not be as exciting without, anyway, that's all right. Across the state, there's been about a 50% decline in the numbers of koalas. Here in southeast Queensland, or in the Redlands, as many of you know, that number is up about 80%. So there's been about an 80% decline in koala numbers in just the last 20 years alone. 80% decline, and right across the state, around 50%. And the leading driver of koala numbers of being in decline is habitat loss. So here is just a short graph I've pulled out goes back starting at 2010 up to 2018, and this is statewide figures on habitat loss, on forest and bushland destruction. And this is from the state government's own data, the statewide land and tree survey, the SLATS data. So anyone can look that up online, SLATS, you can type it in. And you can see, you can even look at more detail, you can look at different areas where the majority of the bushland is going down. But I pulled this out because I wanted to show you what happens when laws do change, when laws change that protect forest and bushland. So what we saw in 2013 was a gutting of the vegetation management laws. And as you can see, that when those laws changed, the forest and bushland habitat loss increased to the point where the most recent figures are up around 400,000 hectares per annum. That's about an area the size of the Gabba Stadium. Has anyone here been to the Gabba? A few people, yes, a few hands up. An area the size of the Gabba every 3 minutes being bulldozed. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in Queensland. So that's how much forest and bushland we're losing across the state. There we go, working, thank you. Thanks for you just needed to be there, probably when you go away. And because of Queensland's forest and bushland loss, Australia has made international headlines. So Many people don't know this, but because when you mention the word deforestation, what countries come to mind? Brazil, Indonesia, you can picture orangutans, right? Australia, Eastern Australia in particular, is on that global list, the top 10 list of deforestation hotspots, along with places like the Amazon, the Congo, Borneo. We're the only developed country on that list. And that is mostly because of Queensland's deforestation rates. We take the trophy year after year of deforestation hotspot. And the Queensland government's own commissioned koala expert panel report, which came out in September 2017, said that the loss of koala habitat is considered to be the threat having the greatest impact on koalas. It's no surprise, right, when you see how much habitat is being lost just in your own area, and then you realise that that is just the tip of the iceberg, because that's just what we can see. But there's so much happening out of sight, out of mind. And of course, when a lot of people say, oh no, well, we just need to stop, we just need to get everyone to lock up their dogs. And of course, the impacts of predators, dogs, cats, car strikes, they are just the flow-on effect from the loss of habitat. Because when koalas have to go to ground and have to travel long distances to find other places to go, they get attacked by these animals. They're more prone to disease, starvation. So obviously, yes, these are major factors, but the underlying cause is the loss of habitat. And that's what the science is telling us. And it's really no wonder, because Australia, which is not coming up again, but Australia is actually, it's all right, I'll just keep talking through. Australia is actually number 1 in the world for mammal extinction, and number 2 in the world, thank you, it's just your touch, I don't know. Number 2 in the world for biodiversity loss. So it's not just koalas. Australia is number 1 in the world for mammal extinction. That is not something that we should be proud of as a country. I'm sure a lot of people saw on Four Corners the other night, they did mention Toondah Harbour, which was great to see a look in on Four Corners, but they also mentioned that we take the trophy for number 1 in the world for mammal extinction. And really, where is the federal government then on this issue? Let's have a quick look at where the federal government is on the issue of threatened species. Koalas are listed as threatened, vulnerable, on our federally listed federal list of threatened species, and they're also listed on our state list of threatened species. Therefore, you'd think that their habitat would be protected by the federal government. And the federal government does have a responsibility to protect matters of national environmental significance through the EPBC Act, the Environmental Protection, Biodiversity and Conservation Act. Yet ever since that federal piece of legislation was brought in, over 20 years ago now, every indicator of environmental health has gone down. Not one indicator has gone up, and we've lost more and more habitat of nationally listed threatened species. So what I can draw from this is that once a threatened species goes on the threatened species list, it's actually just a death warrant. Because no, it does not protect habitat, and that's what we've seen. So that's where the federal government's at. Not sure, sorry. Anyway, and what about the state government? So the state government did bring in stronger vegetation management laws in 2018, which did have large loopholes in it for clearing, particularly for exempt agriculture, called Category X. There's about 23 million hectares across the state of this Category X, which is completely exempt from needing any regulation at all. And that is even after those reforms. So we did see some good reforms in 2018 for habitat protection, but we're yet to see those loopholes be addressed, and also the loopholes for the clearing of urban development, which is what everyone here probably sees the most of, is the clearing for development. I'm not sure, sorry, but that's all right. And so obviously we've got a long way to go. As I mentioned before, the state government did commission an expert panel report that came out in 2017. In their response, there was 6 recommendations. In their response, they said, yes, we agree to every single one of the recommendations, except if you look in detail into what they said, recommendation 2 is habitat protection, which includes the amendments and changes to the regulations that would rein in the development that we're seeing. And they said we agree to all of those in principle. So it's really important to read the fine print because what they're actually saying there is we need to have a look at that and we need to see who's going to be opposed to that and who's going to give us backlash, right? That's what I take from that. Thank you.
That's the right slide.
So what that tells me, that they agree in principle to that habitat protection, is that we need to show that we as a community are more powerful than the interests that are up against them when they're looking at what they're going to do around the protection of koala habitat, right? The community needs to take action and we need to say this needs to happen quickly and the laws need to be as strong as possible. So Redlands 2030 is actually a signatory to a letter. I did have a picture of it. It seems to have gone missing in the computer. But there are copies of the letter that you can read. There's a few copies of a letter that we've sent to the state government saying, yes, it's great that you've done this koala expert panel report. It's great that you've committed to all the recommendations. However, the community is not going to accept anything unless you address the loss of habitat. And this is what that looks like. And there's 10 points there, which goes through some of the exemptions that I mentioned before, which need to be addressed because there's such large loopholes that are allowing development to clear prime koala habitat every single day right in front of our eyes. So you can have a look at that letter. The next thing though that I would highly recommend, we do have a petition going around there, saving habitat, saving koalas, but a petition really isn't enough. We have to be going in right across southeast Queensland and meeting with our politicians and not only saying the laws need to be strong, but hurry the hell up. What is going on? It needs to happen now. Why is it that the report came out in 2017, September 2017, and we're still waiting for these reforms? So we are holding a workshop on how to meet with your MP. I know there's a lot of people in this room who do that every single day or regularly every few weeks. Who are out there talking to their politician. But there's also other people right across southeast Queensland who want to do something but feel anxious when they maybe think about going to meet with their Member of Parliament, not sure what to do. We're holding a workshop on this very issue. It is over in St Lucia, as I mentioned, so we'll try and work out how we could do something out here potentially even. Yep. We tried to make somewhere that was kind of central for lots of community groups to meet with your Member of Parliament, but I highly recommend people to go meet with their politician, take that letter with you that we've all signed on to, all the conservation groups on this issue, and just say, you know, what's happening on the reforms that you've promised. And then the final thing is joining a local group. It doesn't have to be this. There's a Wilderness Society Bayside Action Group. It doesn't have to be this one. The point is joining a local group and staying active on what's happening is very powerful because a petition's one thing, but someone knocking on their politician's door every few weeks or getting out and having conversations with people is more powerful. So I'd highly recommend that. I think that's it. Thank